Okay, good morning, everybody, and thanks for taking out this morning to come for this event. As a background, this event has taken us 5 years to get here. In 2020, just before COVID, we wanted to run an Outlook event in February. And it was run on a Friday like today. And I think on Thursday, the government shut down Nigeria because of the COVID stuff. And so we canceled that event. It's taken us 5 years to get back here. So welcome. Thank you very much for coming. Now, what we had wanted to do today and what we wanted to do 5 years ago was to set up an industry event where every year we look at what has happened in the industry, maybe the past 1 year, and look at the effect on that on our own industry. This is not about the global industry, but our own industry, so that we can talk about Nigeria, the tech space, because if you look at Nigerian GDP today, tech is about, I think, 18% of the GDP. They call it ICT or something. So that includes telecoms, includes digital, what is called digital economy, and all sorts of stuff in that. So when we are doing an outlook for tech, it's important to have that in context. That we're talking about 18% of the country's GDP. It's not fintech, it's not AI. I think there are components of it, but I think we should be aware of that. What I've done here, I'm not making a speech. I just have a few pictures I'm going to share, and this is I copied them from public media, and in some of them you see that this is the Punch. And I'm going to show some news items that have happened since the past 1 year around the tech industry to kind of give you an idea of what we mean by tech. Okay? So you can see here that I think last year the federal government said they're investing $2 billion to do 90 kilometers of fiber. Is that tech? Is it not tech? Because this fiber was supposed to have been done in 2000, actually, around 1999, 2000, when they licensed the telecom companies, because the federal government signed an agreement with people like MTN and said, we're going to take $285 million from you to give you a license, but we're going to provide you fiber. And if the federal government didn't build the fiber, the telecom company decided to build their own fiber. But I think government is waking up and spending $20 billion, because if you have people like MTN today and you need to improve their service, if you have data centers, all those things will run on a fiber network. So any phone, any data you send from your phone today, and you want it to be fast, if these things are not working very well, we're going to keep having a very bad service. This one is interesting. Why would MTN be building power systems to power themselves? You know, there was this conversation I got involved in one group. We were talking about, they were saying Nigeria should build its own AI data centers, element systems. And I asked the person, where is the power? Okay? Because the data center to drive some of the AI you have, Nigeria alone, all the power in Nigeria is not enough to drive those. That's why you see people like Microsoft and Google today, they're buying nuclear power plants so that they can get enough power to power their data centers that runs all the things we're going to use in this AI. So if anybody comes and is having a conversation around AI in Nigeria, he's not looking at the power to run it. Sometimes it's an idle conversation. So I just want to make sure that even power is part of the infrastructure required to run. If you're looking at telecom, if you're doing an outlook, you have to look at where is the power to run what you want to build. Because you can come here and talk about we need to build this, we need to have more data centers, we have to build it. If you have enough data centers in Nigeria, we'll not have enough power to power them. And some people will say, let's use solar. I mean, you know how much solar can go. Okay, this one is straightforward. The guys that are investing in Nigeria, AWS wants to put more cloud in Nigeria. Now, this one talks about the size of. Does anybody understand how they measure data center power in the world globally? Anybody here understand it? But this looks at what they see as the current power we need in the data centers today and what we're going to need in 2030. I don't think we have this 136 right now. I think we have less than 60. But a lot of people are beginning to build data centers in Nigeria. And I think it's important for us to build those data centers because they will host the cloud services locally for us to have better services on the devices we use. But the fact that they see this kind of space in that place means that we don't have enough data centers. I think South Africa possibly have more than half of the data center capacity in Africa. Well, this is the popular one. Startups raised 400 million last year. I think it was less than the year before. But the fact that they're raising this, and some of the things they're raising it for are not tech companies. Some of them are tech companies. But it shows the appetite for investment in this space, that more and more money is raised by young companies that are starting in the industry. I think this was 2 weeks ago, Microsoft announced that they're going to train 1 million people on AI in Nigeria. Again, that is part of training, learning. I think that there's another slide that talks about how the federal government is also trying to train 3 million people. Google is trying to train, I think, another 1 million or something. All these trainings will be good because even Nigeria wants to be able to service this technology industry that is growing, and also with the fact that quite a lot of people are leaving the industry because they're going abroad. We have to get to the point where we're training maybe 1 million people a year for a while so that we have enough capacity for local and then for export. So this is the power we generated. I think this was last week, 5,700 megawatts. Does anybody have an idea of how much we need in Nigeria? 25 megawatts? I think South Africa has about 20 something megawatts or 30 something megawatts. South Africa has 45. So we just have about 10% of the power that South Africa has. So if a company wants to come to Africa today and wants to build a data center, would they choose Nigeria over South Africa? Okay. This one I put here because, again, if you are in the tech industry and you deal with B2B companies, large companies, and every time you look at the bank statement at the end of the year, their financial statement, they will always tell you where they want to invest the profit they made in. And normally tech is number one or number two. So in the past 1 year, they've been raising billions and billions and billions of money. Where do you think that is going to go? How much of that is going to go to tech? 20%, 30%? So if you're a practitioner and looking at your business for this year, the outlook for you is to go and pursue the banks because they're raising so much money and most of this money must be deployed to rebuild their tech. This one is a bit of a negative news that the telecom industry declined, the investment in the telecom industry declined by 87%. Again, this should worry us for this year because this is the difference between maybe having 5G network in your neighborhood or not having, or having service, much better service. As you've noticed, most times now, the quality of service, even in Lagos, has degraded. I think it's partly because the federal government refused to increase their fares, and then they lost their money, a lot of money in FX, and then they're not getting enough investment. When that happens, a lot of services we are building that the MTN and Co at the backbone will degrade. So you want to send mail, and your email spends 30 seconds in your phone instead of going immediately. And that could be related to this. Did anybody see this? 81 billion? I don't think it's right, but I know that the federal government is suing them because they came back and said Nigeria tried to steal money from them, and then Nigeria went and sued them. But this was in the news most of last year, and the crypto space is part of the tech space, right? I guess. And okay, crypto is not tech, but underlying technology, which is what is underlying technology again? Blockchain. The underlying technology, which is blockchain, is part of the industry. So crypto is the sign that that industry is growing or not growing. And I think the industry is growing. And you'll be surprised how much of things are being done in Nigeria through crypto exchanges. I think SEC has some sanity. They're beginning to license them. But that's part of the ecosystem. Not necessarily crypto itself, but the underlying industry that runs the stuff. This one also happened last year. Microsoft shut down their development center just across the road there. And was that good for us? Was that bad for us? You would expect that the foreign companies, the international companies, will see Nigeria as a place for their centers. Why this was very painful is not just because Microsoft is our partner, but why it was painful is that this development center was, I'm not sure any other company has a development center in Nigeria because in this center, they developed the software you use globally. So this was part of a global development center. They put two in Africa, two or three in Africa. They didn't shut down the one in Kenya. In fact, they moved some people from that building there to Kenya. So if you go to the Kenya office today, there are a lot of Nigerian developers there. But that was important because when they're developing large solutions like that, we're the biggest black nation in the world. It would have been important to have a center here so that when they want to get feedback on how those things are operating in countries like us, like here, that they get input from Nigeria. But it's also a sign of, so if we look at it now, what does it mean for our industry this year that some of these companies, some are coming, some are leaving? Okay, I put this to look at policy again. If we're looking at outlook, we have to look at policy. What is the effect of government policy on the business you are starting or the company you are working or the vertical you're in? Last year, need that we regulate the industry published this draft national AI strategy. NIDA is here. I don't know whether anybody has seen this. I think it was launched last year. The idea is to have a common framework for us to try and localize our AI here because at the end of the day, you want, if AI is going to take over people's jobs, if AI is going to be thinking for us, if there's no Nigerian thinking into the AI, it means that we'll be consuming foreign intelligence. That will not be good for us. This one just happened 2 days ago. I think this is still being unfolded, but I just thought it would be a conversation to have. About 7 years ago, when NIDA remitter was appointed, the government came after them. And in annoyance, I went and wrote a famous article about letting remitter leave. It was quite, in the industry, it was a bit popular. And 7 years later, we don't know whether they're still going to be there or not. But I think part of the worry for us is that, for us, supposing you're in the same space as this company, supposing you're building your local platforms, and government has an influence on it, so government wakes one day and tells you, please, we're pulling you out. Meanwhile, in those 7 years, Remita has built a huge head office somewhere, and maybe now they have 300 people or 400 people employed. What's going to happen to them? And what's the prospect of those who want to say, look, exchange rate has fallen, let us build local software and sell to people, including government. So this is about this is 3 million tech talents, right? That's the meaning of that 3M. Does anybody know the meaning? 3MTT? Anybody heard of this? So last year or 2 years ago, the federal government, the ministry of our ministry, launched a program to train 3 million tech talents. Nobody has been trained from here in this program. There are no young people here. Sorry. Anyway, the government says we're going to train 3 million people, graduates, to learn tech, to learn digital tech, AI, and they rolled it out across the country, and I've been doing it over time. And the idea was that the talents we need in this economy, we have to train them. The talents to transform the economy. I think it's a good initiative. I don't know about the execution. I've not seen how it's been executed. But in the context of an outlook, what would the effect of dumping 3 million people with tech skills on the world? I mean, that's not very small. Nigeria cannot consume 3 million, but the idea was that if we cannot consume, we can export. I think we're already exporting tech talent, but I think we can fast track the export of tech talent from Nigeria. We're getting to the point where, because of Naira devaluation, our currency is cheap, our labor is cheap, and tech labor is expensive globally. So I think that this was a good initiative. It's interesting to look out for. I'm hoping that during this conversation, it comes up somewhere where people are talking about, so what's the effect of this on people like us who lose our staff every day? People like the startup companies that keep losing their staff, that migrate abroad, and even banks today that sometimes that a tech department walks away and relocates. I think that this kind of program over time will help stabilize the tech ecosystem. So what I've done in the past 10 minutes has been to lay the outline of the my understanding of the tech industry, so that when we're having conversations throughout the day, we have that as a background and not focus on a narrow area. I keep giving an example that sometimes we treat the tech industry like we treat the movie industry. You know, in the movie industry, people see the actor. and think that, but the actor is not the industry. The actor is just the person who stays on top of that. The telecom, I mean, the IT industry sometimes looks like that. So somebody comes and says, okay, talk to us about fintech. Talk to us about fintech. Again, fintech sits on top of the tech industry. So, and it sounds very sexy. Startups sound very sexy. But the real tech industry today starts from the time where we need to plan for the power that will run the industry, the fiber that will run the industry, the data centers that will run the industry, the policies and the human risk capital that will run the industry. When you look at that in context, my hope is that when we do this program next time, and even today, what we're looking at is what has happened this year that, that will influence the tech industry. So that when government says tech industry is growing by 7% or 5% a year, we can dimension it to how power contributed to that, infrastructure contributed to that, data centers contributed to that, and people contributed to that. Thank you very much.